All right. Welcome, Kathleen. Thanks for being part of our presentation today. Appreciate it. All right. Kathleen M. Fernandez is a graduate of Audubon College with a BA in history. Is a former site manager at Zoar Village and Fort Lawrence State Memorials for the Ohio Historical Society, now the Ohio History Connection, retiring in 2004. She worked as the executive director of the North Canton Heritage Society from 2006 to 2016. She has been the Communal Studies Association since 2004. She is an author of a Singular People, Images of Zoar, Kent State University Press 2003, and General History of Zoar called Zoar, the story of an intentional community. Kent State University Press 2019, winner of the 2019 Distinguished Book Award from the Communal Studies Association, and has written numerous papers and articles about the Zoar separatists for journals and conferences. Thank you, Kathy, and welcome.
Thank you.
Sorry about the confusion. It's kind of new to us. We're getting the hang of it, but it's a little new.
Okay, I'm going to try and share my screen here. We'll see how that goes. Okay. How about that? It worked. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you all for inviting me. I think I spoke to you guys all about a year or two ago. And so I found something else I could talk about, and something that you all know a lot about as well, since it goes right through Massillon, and it's the Ohio and Erie Canal. And this is a paper that I wrote, so I am going to read it, but I'll try to be as conversational as possible. And I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. It starts out with a biblical quote, and he becomes poor that dealeth with a slack hand, but the hand of the diligent maketh rich. Proverbs 10:4. Contemporary observer of the Society of Separatists of Zoar, PFD, we don't know his real name, in his essay, Harmony Builds the House in 1832, uses this biblical quotation to describe the serendipity of the building of the Ohio and Erie Canal provided to this struggling group of Germans who, driven from their ancestral German homeland by religious persecution, came to settle in the Tuscarawas Valley to form a communal society. In just 14 short years, the separatists, so called because they separated away from the Lutheran State Church in Germany, went from desperately scratching out a living in their new land to becoming, in PFD's word, the trading center of the region. And it was all because of the Ohio and Erie Canal. The separatists were so needful of the labor of everyone, including women in their childbearing years, that they made another momentous decision in 1822, just 5 years after their 1817 arrival in America, to become celibate. Celibacy, already a tenet of their faith, was originally optional. It now became mandatory. Already married men and women lived in separate households. Women worked alongside the men, as you can see in this picture, in the fields in order to survive and earn enough cash to pay off the $16,000 debt for their land. The separatists, like other Ohioans, needed a way to get their products to market to obtain that needed cash. The dream of the Ohio and Erie Canal was seen as a means to that end. It was the answer to the religious separatist prayers. After the route of the canal was determined to travel 7 miles through their lands, in 1826, the separatists decided to build this portion themselves. They desired to maximize the $21,000 that they would receive from the state of Ohio in return for their labor to build the canal. Because women had no young children to look after, because they were still at time, they could work beside the men, carrying dirt from the excavation in baskets on their heads and in their aprons, at least according to legend anyway. They built a guard lock to regulate the water flow from the Tuscarawas and another for a feeder canal into the nearby village of Zoar. 4 stone lift locks along this route were built by outside workmen, and additional income was obtained by providing the nearby canal contractors with food and supplies. In 2 years of arduous labor, the separatists succeeded. The canal opened to Cleveland and their mortgage was paid. And in 1829, celibacy was ended, either because they became wealthy or because of other reasons. We really don't know exactly, but it was rather coincidental that celibacy ended at that same time. Evidence of the prosperity brought by the canal can still be seen in Zoar. Number 1 house, built in 1835, the Zoar store in 1833, the Zoar Hotel in 1833, and many residences date from this time. Travelers on the canal were beginning to discover this little piece of Germany nestled in the Tuscarawas Valley. One, George Washington Hayward, stopped out in 1829 and marveled at the new geometric central garden and its accompanying hothouse, which still, of course, exists if you've been to Zoar. The canny Zoarites, wishing to profit from all aspects of the canal, built the Canal Tavern on its banks in 1832, and also the Zoar Hotel, which you can see here in this picture. This is the Canal Tavern. Your overnight packet boats, boatmen and their animals were cared for here. Yearly bills to the canal boat companies totaled as much as $1,000. And today, this, although it's closed for all but special events, this is the Inn on the River or the Canal Tavern restaurant on the canal right outside of Zoar. So
just to let you know, all we see is the one picture. We are not seeing the actual slides.
Oh, you're kidding, really? Okay.
So we just see the setup. We're not seeing the slides. So if you want to just scroll through the setup there, that would be better, because all we see is the field with people in it.
Okay, I don't know how to. That should be able to work, but let me go back to the program itself. Can you see it there? What do you see now?
Yes, we see the house.
Now it's on slide 4. Yep.
Okay, well we'll do it from here then, if you don't mind seeing the stuff on the side. Thank you for letting me know. I'm sorry. Okay. So great was the trade at the Zoar Hotel, was built a year later, as I said. And we'll go here. Flour, lumber, hides, and other produce routinely were sent to ports north and south on the canal. Butter made from the milk of the Zoar dairy herd was especially prized by commission merchants in Cleveland and New York. The canal enabled the separatists to plunge into other business ventures. In 1834, they established the Zoar furnace to produce pig iron. The furnace was off the canal just north of the village and north of the Canal Tavern that you just saw before. A spur was cut into the canal to bring the ore and coal, both mined nearby, and ship out the iron pigs, which you can see one of those there by the iron stamp there. And finished products were cast in the nearby Zoar foundry. The community became noted for its cast iron stoves and other ironware, which can still be seen in the restored buildings in Zoar. And you might want to note that that's a barrel stamp. You heat it in a fire and then put it on the barrel, and you'll notice it's J.M. Beimler and Company. And Joseph Beimler was the leader of their community. He also took a lot of responsibility on his own, and it became a lot of conflict in the community as well. A second facility, Fairfield Furnace on One Leg Creek, south of Zoar, near today's Zoarville, was purchased from some Canton investors at the same year. An entrepreneurial effort, the iron industry employed mainly outsiders, not members of the community. The enterprises contributed great income to the society and would not have been possible except for the cheap transportation afforded by the canal. Joseph Beimler Zoar Society's visionary business and religious leader, described the community, including the iron industry, in glowing terms to U.S. Postmaster General William T. Berry on June 12, 1834. I quote, "The village of Zoar is situated about 9 miles directly north of New Philadelphia, about 1/2 mile east of the Ohio Canal and the Tuscarawas River. It is principally inhabited by Germans and contains at present about 300 souls. The improvements consist chiefly in 1 flouring mill, 2 sawmills, 1 oil mill, 1 woolen and linen manufacturing establishment, 1 warehouse, 1 new and commodious hotel, 1 store, and various other places of industry and mechanical business." He goes on to describe the new blast furnace being built, the rolling land, and its products of the soil: wheat, rye, corn, barley, oats, flax, and hemp. Horses and cattle and sheep are improving. He describes the nearby iron ore, which is daily hauled to the banks of the Ohio Canal and thence shipped to the several blast furnaces north and south. But just after this was written, Canal brought an unwelcome gift to the community: cholera. Between August and September of 1834, 52 of the 300 souls mentioned by Weimler perished. This dread disease broke out when the body of Allen Wallace, a canal traveler who had died while staying at the Canal Tavern, was exhumed from the Zoar cemetery by his wife, for the belongings buried with him. Whether carried by Wallace or just coincidental, cholera swiftly cut down the adults in prime of life, as well as many children. The community by now was stable enough financially to rally, and with outside labor continued its expansion, building a double 4-story, here it is, flouring mill over the canal in 1837. Although not as efficient as the other mills that they had, the section spanning the canal was ideal for storage, so boats could be loaded from above without having to dock. Remnants of this huge structure can still be seen north of Lock 10 on the Ohio and Erie Canal towpath. The society kept its own fleet of canal boats: the Friendship, the Industry, and a flatboat used to haul ore, economy. In 1837, Zoar figured the cost to operate the Industry with member Johannes Peterman, 1819 to 1872, at the helm with $170 per month. The next year, they hired Captain James Rudder at $218 per month, with Rudder paying his own expenses. His contract was renewed until at least 1843. A new boat, perhaps again called the Friendship, was custom built for the society by Barnhart of Peninsula at the cost of $1,100 in 1849. In 1845, the Zoar Society opted to close the Canal Tavern. Its proprietor, member Johann Georg Gaisley, was dismissed by the society for not following its rules with canalers. He sued the society, and the eventual outcome of this suit in 1852 in the U.S. Supreme Court was established that communal societies have the right to insist that members abide by their signed contracts. I'm going to go past that again, because apparently I don't have these slides in the right order. Forgive me. This is one of the locks that was built. The economy was changing along the canal. Passenger service drifted to the more efficient railroads, such as the Cleveland and Pittsburgh Railroad that came to Zoar Station, now called Zoarville, 2 miles distant in the 1850s. The separatists, never once to miss an opportunity to make money, opened a store adjacent to the depot on land that they owned. Canal freight traffic continued, but the local iron industry dwindled, with better Lake Superior ores now being used. The furnaces closed in the 1850s, the foundry in 1875, but local ore was still being shipped to Massillon in 1881. Communal Zoar changed too. After leader Joseph Weimler's death in 1853, the society began slowly to decline. Without its dynamic leader, the old ways were continued without much thought. Tourism brought to the fore by the addition of the Wheeling and Erie Railroad in 1882, right into Zoar, became the leading money-making industry and brought customers, cash, and prices to Zoar. Church attendance declined without Weimler's inspiring Sunday discourses, and many young people left to make their own way in the world. Finally, the decision was made in March of 1898 to dissolve the Zoar Society. The Zoar land holdings were divided among the 222 surviving members, and Zoar became just another sleepy Ohio village. A huge clay deposit along the canal and railroad were sold to local interests and became the Zoar Fire Brick Company, a thriving enterprise into the 1970s. After the 1913 flood ruined the canal for transportation, of course, also in Massillon as well, the state of Ohio's Division of Wildlife constructed State Fish Farm number 12 on the canal north of Lock 10. The enterprise was never very successful, and the hatchery closed in 1935. In 1930, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers proposed moving Zoar to higher ground so that it would not be inundated by the impounded waters of its Dover and Bolivar dams. Villagers, both society descendants and new residents, persuaded the Corps to construct the Zoar levee instead. This saved the town, but forever separated it away from its lifeblood, the Ohio and Erie Canal and the river. That same year, Number One House was opened as a museum by the newly formed Zoar Historical Society, and Zoar again became a mecca for tourists. Number One, the garden, and other acquired buildings, including the Zoar Hotel, which is still not restored completely, was later purchased by the state of Ohio and since 1942 have been administered by the Ohio Historical Society, now the Ohio History Connection. In 1965, the canal lands from Zoarville, formerly Zoar Station, northwest of Bolivar, were deeded to the Tuscarawas County Commissioners by the State Canal Lands Office. Nothing much was done with them until the mid-1970s, when the Buckeye Council Boy Scouts developed the Zoar Valley Trail from Fort Lawrence and Bolivar to Zoar, and then to Zoarville along the towpath. Later, the Ohio Historical Society began giving tours along the towpath as a way to draw attention to the importance of the canal's history to the village. With the formulation of the Ohio and Erie Canal Corridor Coalition in 1989, now the Ohio and Erie Canalway Coalition, the Zoar Historic Site Manager, that was me, became involved with the creation of the National Heritage Corridor. The Tuscarawas County Commissioners, as part of this effort, created the Canal Lands Advisory Committee in 1995. They have since been instrumental in improving the towpath, building bridges, and now creating a new crushed limestone surface so that hikers, bikers, horsemen, and everyday citizens can again appreciate the canal and have this once vibrant economic resource made by the hands of the diligent Zoar separatists still touches our lives today. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very, very interesting.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Kathleen? And I've ridden that towpath quite often at Zoar. Past all locks. It's a pretty cool ride on my bike.
Okay. Of course, you all know that the towpath goes through Massillon too, and it's now almost completed. I guess I haven't been along Route 21 for a while, but I understand that they're going to be next summer finishing up that section there along the railroad.
Right. Yes. Yeah. You won't have to go through that little neighborhood anymore. That'd be nice.
And I think that and I just heard on the radio this morning that that they're making a park up in Cleveland on Irishtown Bend, which is one of the very last sections up in Cleveland. And then there's a small connection to the lakefront. And if that's with all of that, I think there will be a continuous. You can walk from New Philadelphia all the way to Cleveland if you would.
So desire.
And a lot of people bike. I mean, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
there's not. It's. I actually feel really proud that I had a little piece of trying to make that towpath a reality. I was on the committee for ever since it began until I retired from Zoar in 2004, and to see people being able to use it, especially right now with the pandemic, it's one of the things that you can do right now. So,
Yeah.
but I'm glad to answer any other questions about Zoar that you might have.
Anybody?
I do. Hear me? See me here? Mike?
Anybody? Yep.
Am I on?
Yes, you're on.
All right. Hi.
Hi.
Is part of that, hi. Is part of that railway still going through Zoar? Is that all transformed into the trail now? You said the railroad there was a railroad that went through Zoar also?
Well, it didn't go through Zoar, and when they built the Zoar levee in the 1930s, they rerouted the railway it didn't really come into Zoar. It kind of skirted the south edge of it, but they rerouted it. And if ever driven between Zoar and Zoarville, going to Route 416 where Dover's Dam is, you go under that railroad overpass. Under that railroad overpass, and that's the railroad that came through there. But there's also another road that goes north and south, and then there's an east railroad that came to Zoarville, and that's been abandoned, and it's now actually going to be, or if not already, part of the Ohio and Erie towpath trail going to Dover and New Philadelphia.
Right.
They're building it over that railroad bed.
Right.
Oh, I see. Okay. I see. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
but it's at one time with the canal, Massillon was much bigger than Canton. It was really, even though Canton was the county seat from the beginning, but the canal made Massillon a larger town than Canton. And it wasn't really until the railroads came and made Canton the nexus of the railroad as opposed to the canal, that a lot of the industry went the other direction.
Oh, right. I see.
And
I see. Okay.
Interesting. Anybody else has anything for Kathleen?
well, thank you all.
That was well done. Thank you very much for being part of it.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
going